Welcome to Asia Outlook. I am Aga Jo, and I'm here to report the top stories from around Asia. China is at the forefront of vaccine development for COVID-19. It has just approved trial for its first nasal spray coronavirus vaccine, while Russia and Pakistan have approved plans for a phase 3 clinical trial of a vaccine developed by CanSino Bio and the Beijing Institute of Biotechnology, China.
China is at the forefront of vaccine development for COVID-19. It has just approved trials for its first nasal spray coronavirus vaccine, while Russia and Pakistan have approved plans for a phase 3 clinical trial of a vaccine developed by CanSino Bio and the Beijing Institute of Biotechnology, China. The candidate entered clinical trial as early as mid-March with more than 5,000 people signing up to be tested, and it moved into phase 2 1 month later. The candidate was granted the first patent by Chinese authorities last month. Medical researcher Major General Chen Wei led a team that developed the vaccine. She was awarded a national honorary title, the People's Hero, earlier this week. Among the 9 candidates in phase 3 trials worldwide, 4 are Chinese.
Professor Swaran Singh from the School of the International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University said that the Indian government is facing a very bad situation. On the one hand, it needs to try to deal with the domestic economic problems and the public health challenges caused by COVID-19. On the other hand, the Indian public are very angry about China-Indian border issues, prompting the government to ban Chinese mobile phone applications and adopt stricter regulations on foreign investment. He believes that currently the Indian government would not have the motivation to ratchet up tensions with its neighbors.
Do you think under such kind of stress, maybe it is more likely for Indian leaders to make wrong calls on some issues?
I think we are on the reverse. This is the worst time for India to think of opening any more fronts for creating more tensions, because Indian public is very, very, robustly, involved in all the policy-making decisions. And obviously, you have noticed the kind of anger that Indian public has shown, vis-a-vis Chinese, and forcing the government to ban several mobile applications, be more tough on investment regulations. So Indian government, I think, is not absolutely in position to, start any more front in a situation where they are already trying to deal with their economic and health challenges. So I don't think that's an opportune time. It's a bad time. And I don't think, therefore, India would have any reason and any motivation to think of opening any of the tensions with the neighboring country. The last we were seeing was fantastic informal summits between Indian Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping.
All right.
Very different relationships. So this has come obviously as a surprise to India. And I don't think there could be any reason for India to think of ratcheting up these kind of equations on the border with China.
The Chinese mainland support team for Hong Kong's COVID-19 universal testing program has laid a solid foundation for future pandemic control in the city, thanks to the valuable experience gleaned and the effectiveness of the mass testing. Local medical experts and lawmakers said this on Thursday. They said the selfless efforts of the mainland medical team in helping the city carry out over 1.5 million tests have touched the hearts of Hong Kong people.
我们最多能够体验到的是最广大香港市民的这一份爱心，这一份热情。我们收了好多的这种感谢卡，除了贴在墙上的，我们还有好几百张放在箱子里面，这些都令我们很感动。我哋好多謝呢班落嚟嘅幾百個醫護人員、老師同員，我哋係身為香港市民無言感激，多謝佢哋支持我哋。香港實在嘅醫護人員咧係唔夠嘅。 咁難得咧，終於體諒到我哋香港市民咧，因為而家疫情影響我哋香港個經濟咧，就派啲專家落嚟咧，等我哋快脆變好差，等我哋盡快恢復經濟。
是离乡别井，来到在中国地区疫情比较严峻的香港，放弃我们的个人安逸，为的是协助香港与这个新冠病毒博弈，这都是基于一份高尚心，解决了香港在这个检测设施和人员方面的严重不足，我们是非常感激。
我一定大家对于志愿队的问候，对志愿队的感谢转达到每一位队员，让每一位队员都能感受到，他们呢不是一个人在战斗，在香港是得到我们广大香港人民、香港各界支持。我们有一个共同的目标，就是呢早日战胜疫情。
Alfred Sid Wang Han, HKSAR Secretary for Innovation and Technology, sees abundant opportunities for the city's innovation and technology sector amid the pandemic as Hong Kong's anti-pandemic technology products gain traction overseas, while locally fledgling e-commerce and payment landscape is evolving quickly because of the social distancing.
Of course, COVID-19 is a crisis. It makes our people and our business and the whole community suffering a lot. But it also an opportunity, in particular for promotion of innovation and technology, because it gives the driving force for change. Now, we are going to a new normal situation. It means that there are plenty of opportunity that we should improve our daily life so that we can have a better arrangement to combat COVID-19 by means of making use of more technology. So it's a good opportunity for us to promote the technology in Hong Kong to the outside world. We have already conducted two webinars. One was with Thailand, and the other was with Indonesia. The main purpose was to promote the technology that Hong Kong has been using in combating COVID-19. For example, for the electronic wristband, well, we have been approached by more than 10 countries. They would like to know more about what we have used the electronic wristband in handling the home quarantine. It's a good timing for us to introduce e-business. In the good old day, Hong Kong is a very convenient place. So the people go for shopping, go for dining, that's easy. So the people, in particular the shop owner, they don't have any demand for I&T to improve their business. But now, under COVID-19, the situation is changing because of all the social distancing requirement. People has concern going to a shop, going to the restaurant. Then e-business is more and more important. So the government understands the need and the chance for making improvement. That is the chance we can make use of.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with the Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Tokayev on Saturday in the Kazakh capital, Nur-Sultan. Wang Yi said China will continue to help Kazakhstan deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and strengthen cooperation on vaccine research on drugs. He promised more opportunities as China further opens up and invited Kazakhstan to attend this year's China International Import Expo. The two sides also voiced support for multilateralism.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held talks with Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Tokayev on Saturday in the Kazakh capital Nur-Sultan. Wang Yi said China will continue to help Kazakhstan deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and strengthen cooperation on vaccine research and drugs. He promised more opportunities as China further opens up and invited Kazakhstan to attend this year's China International Import Expo. The two sides voiced support for multilateralism. Tokayev said his country will always oppose interference in other countries' affairs, and he promised to work with China to fight false information on social networks that harms national stability. Wang Yi will next visit Kyrgyzstan and Mongolia.
China and Kyrgyzstan have reaffirmed commitments to strengthening ties. This follows a meeting between the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Kyrgyz President Surombe Jinvagov in the Kyrgyz capital Bishkek. Wang said China will continue to help Kyrgyzstan deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and strengthen cooperation on vaccine research and drugs.
China and Kyrgyzstan have reaffirmed commitments to strengthening ties, and this follows a meeting between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his host, President Sooronbay Jeenbekov, in the Kyrgyz capital Bishkek. Wang said China will continue to help Kyrgyzstan deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and strengthen cooperation on vaccine research and drugs. He also said China appreciates Kyrgyzstan's support over issues concerning China's core interest. Jeenbekov expressed thanks for the Chinese medical experts and materials. He also said he hopes for stronger cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative.
Around 400 companies from more than 30 countries and regions around the world presented over 1,000 drones at the 4th Drone World Congress in Shenzhen City, South China's Guangdong province on Sunday. Themed Future of Intelligence, the annual event is a platform for international companies to showcase their latest innovations. Stay with us as we bring you more news on Asia Outlook. The United Nations is marking its 75th anniversary this year. The world body says 2020 must be a year of dialogue and has called for countries and regions to come together to discuss priorities. Secretary General Antonio Guterres reflects on the organization's biggest accomplishments.
The UN is 75 years old. It's time to take stock and reflect. How would you evaluate the UN's contribution to the world thus far?
Well, I think that we must recognize that this period of 75 years is probably the only period in the history of humankind where the big powers had not wars among them. We have many conflicts around the world, but not a conflict like the Second World War or the First World War or the Napoleonic Wars or others that we had in the past. On the other hand, I think we can be very proud of the work of the UN peacekeepers, and they have saved a huge number of lives. They have contributed for countries that were at war to become countries in peace. And the UN has a fantastic role in humanitarian aid. Half of the international humanitarian aid is channeled through the UN agencies. The work these people do, sometimes in the most dangerous areas of the world, in the most dramatic situations, is something we can be very proud of. The UN was able to bring together the countries of the world, both in relation to the Agenda 2030, with the program of eradication of poverty, the program that is today a global program for sustainable and inclusive development, the Sustainable Development Goals. The UN was able to bring together countries for the Paris Agreement on climate change. So there are many positive things, but at the same time, we live in a world where, unfortunately, there is not enough international cooperation. We live in a world where there are too many divisions. And we just had the COVID-19. It is a virus, a microscopic thing, and it has put us on our knees. Why? Because the world was not able to come together to fight it, because there were divisions. And this is my biggest frustration.
Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga has been elected as the new leader of the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, paving his way to succeeding Shinzo Abe as the country's next prime minister. Suga won 377 of the 534 valid votes, beating his two main rivals, their former defense minister Shigeru Ishiba and former foreign minister Fumio Kishida. Their race for the party leadership kicked off last month when longtime Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced his resignation over health issues.
Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga has been elected as the new leader of the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, paving his way to succeed Shinzo Abe as the country's next prime minister. Suga won 377 of the 534 valid votes, beating his two main rivals, former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba and former Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida. Their race to the party leadership kicked off last month when longtime Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced his resignation over health issues. Suga has promised to continue Abe's policies.
We must overcome this crisis so that each person in Japan can feel safe and have a stable living. In order to do that, we need to carry on Prime Minister Abe's measures and move forward with them. I believe it is my mission to do so.
Hong Kong's universal community testing program started on the 1st of September and ended 14 days later. It helped to discover asymptomatic cases and defeat the epidemic as early as possible.
有些中心是比较忙碌，最多的中心每个人6个小时吧，差不多100多个市民，大概5分钟一位，然后你还需要跟他解释一般是这样子的，市民来到，他总有一点紧张，完成每一个市民的采样，差不多每一个市民都是很开心的。现在17天呢，我们看见就是找出了20多个无病征带病毒人士，那每一个可以说就是个潜在的爆发的源头，十分感激，他们都是英雄，还是非常辛苦。他们来香港，为香港人付出了很大的代价，我们觉得非常的感激，非常的感激。对，学农医水是真的。
工作的经验，一个很深的感受就是我们有一个共同的目标。就是一个很短的时间，我们也可以齐心一起为一个共同的目标去完成这个很重要的工作。我希望这个就是团结的力量，日后可以也帮助我们在其他方面。我相信这个疫情总会过去，就是我们一定要我们每一个市民就是有齐心去抗疫。
American officials have confirmed they have received a bid by tech giant Oracle to become TikTok's business partner in the United States. Sources have said before that ByteDance will not sell TikTok's US operations to Microsoft or Oracle, nor will the company give the source code to any US buyers.
The clock is ticking here in the US over the forced sale of social media sensation TikTok's US operations. After US President Trump set a deadline of September 15th, and over the weekend there was a flurry of corporate activity. The result? TikTok's Chinese parent ByteDance announced leading bidder Microsoft is out, data storage and software giant Oracle is in. Oracle says it will serve as the, quote, trusted technology partner of TikTok in the US. Walmart, meanwhile, had partnered with Microsoft on the bid, but now says it may switch to Oracle in a bid to deal with ByteDance. The US Treasury Secretary announced that the White House deadline is now September 20th, not the 15th, and they will be examining the deal over the coming days.
It's going to go through a national security review in the next couple of days, and then we'll be sitting down and reviewing it with the president. But as we've said before, a condition of any deal is to make sure that we believe that the code is safe, that U.S. citizens' personal data is safe, and that the phones are safe.
The plan seems to be storing TikTok user data from the US on Oracle's cloud servers. But the Trump administration isn't calling all the shots here. China's new export controls cover proprietary artificial intelligence algorithms, and CGTN reporting suggests that Beijing regulators may not back any deal with a US company. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs had this to say.
美国个别政客 On one hand, some U.S. politicians are preaching the ideals of achieving fairness and equality and building a so-called clean network. On the other hand, without any evidence at all, they generalize the concept of national security and abuse state power to purposelessly coerce and unjustifiably crack down on non-American enterprises that have taken the lead in particular fields.
Whether Beijing would accept a minority stake in TikTok from Oracle is as yet unclear, as both governments are currently studying the proposed deal. What is clear is that TikTok is a highly sought-over asset here in the US. With 100 million users, it's very valuable. And the battle over this forced sale has attracted the biggest names in US technology. No financial details, however, have been disclosed. What may help this proposed forced sale is the fact that US President Donald Trump and the founder and largest shareholder of Oracle, Larry Ellison, are close friends. Larry Ellison has raised funds for US President Trump, and the current CEO of Oracle has served on the president's transition team. The US president spoke just 2 weeks ago, saying that he was open to a tie-up between Oracle and TikTok. Nathan King, CGTN at the White House.
Wu Guizhan, chief biosafety expert of Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said China is in the lead in the research and production of the COVID-19 vaccines, with 2 workshops approved by the Health Commission.
目前我们国家呢，在这方面，在疫苗整个的这个研发生产呢，是在全世界走在前列的。目前呢，我们实际上有很多种苗已经进入了3期国际上全球现在是有9种，那我们呢，中国就占了5种所以这个方面呢，实际上是非常快的。那大家知道，新冠呢？病毒它是一个高危的病毒，所以它的生产呢需要在这样的一个负压的一个车间、特殊的车间进行。目前呢已经有2家生产车间获得了审批。
Hundreds of thousands of people have been given 2 Chinese COVID-19 vaccine candidates as part of an emergency program without a single case of infection or adverse effects, a senior official of a state-owned vaccine developer has said. The 2 vaccines developed by China National Biotech Group, CNBG, are expected to enter the market as soon as this December, and 2 shots will cost less than 1,000 yuan, which is about $146. That is said by Zhou Song, the company's general legal counsel. They are still undergoing phase 3 trials for safety and efficacy, usually the last step before regulatory approval in more than 10 other countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Peru, Morocco, Argentina, and Jordan, since the epidemic has been basically put under control in China. Japan's exports posted a double-digit slump for a 6th straight month in August as US-bound shipments shrank due to a global demand slowdown from the coronavirus pandemic, casting a shadow over a trade-led recovery from the deep recession. The export decline highlights the immense task Yoshihide Suga, who is assured to be elected prime minister later on Wednesday, faces in driving an economic recovery. Total exports fell by 14.8% year-on-year in August, which is a smaller decline than the 16.1% expected by economists in a Reuters poll, official data showed on Wednesday. We have more news coming up on Asia Outlook. Stick around. The coronavirus will cause economies across developing Asia to shrink for the first time in nearly 6 decades this year, with China expected to grow by 1.8%, the Asian Development Bank said on Tuesday. Developing Asia, which groups 45 countries in Asia-Pacific, is expected to contract the 0.7% in 2020, which is the first negative quarterly figure since 1962. Its previous forecast in June had reckoned on 0.1% growth. For 2021, the region is forecast to recover and grow by 6.8%, which is still below pre-COVID-19 predictions, the bank said in its update of its Asian Development Outlook report. The Chinese embassy in Myanmar on Tuesday held a telephone conference with Myanmar's officials to coordinate strengthening the joint prevention and control of the COVID-19 epidemic in the two countries. The meeting arrived amid a resurgence of the novel coronavirus infections in Myanmar and Chinese reports of confirmed cases that were imported from the neighboring country. The embassy stressed the importance of testing travelers for the novel coronavirus and said it hopes the two sides can strengthen border control and information sharing to prevent the further spread of the virus. Oxygen supply has grown scarce in some parts of India hard hit by coronavirus. Hospital and local government officials said that as India's total coronavirus cases topped 5 million mark on Wednesday, according to the health ministry data. Government officials and experts said the unabated rise in cases across the country were likely a result of the economic activity restarting, local festivals, and lockdown fatigue. Brahma Mukherjee, a professor of the biostatistics and epidemiology at the University of Michigan, who has been tracking India's COVID situation closely, tweeted that she was so disappointed with the pandemic situation in India. Democratic People's Republic of Korea DPRK leader Kim Jong-un praised his military for its prompt efforts to rebuild towns hit hard by typhoons and summer floods, state news media KCNA reported on Tuesday. Kim visited the province of the North Hwanghae, south of Pyongyang, which had removed all traces of the natural disaster and been successfully rebuilt as a socialist fairyland. The report said, quote, Kamburi had been greatly damaged by the recent heavy rain and strong wind, and its reconstruction was called the first report of victory to the party's Central Committee in the campaigns for recovery from disaster, unquote. Nightclubs and places of worship are some other places that have been linked to COVID-19 outbreaks around the world, according to the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom. Speaking on Monday at the Regional Committee of the WHO European region, Tedros warned countries against embarking on reopening their economies before putting the necessary health measures in place to avoid a resurgence of infections. He outlined some measures the countries ought to take before reopening their economies and borders safely. And that's all we have for today's Asia Outlook on Online Radio. Thank you for being with us. I am Aga Cho. We'll be back next week. Until next time.